on the frontier of the flame-wind ancient country. Within Shanji City's garrison mansion, a large group of subordinates respectfully greeted Luo Feng as he officially took over the position of garrison general. Seated in the main hall, Luo Feng was accompanied by Morosa, Moyu Qingyan, and the primordial ancestor, because a primal chaos realm transcendent was personally stationed in the city. He possessed both military and administrative authority, unlike ordinary cities where the city lord and military commander were separate individuals. Since news had long spread that Luo He, the first being to transcend the primal chaos realm, would guard Shanji City, all preparations for his arrival had already been completed. Luo Feng announced that from this day onward, the former deputy guardian's orders would be treated as his own, and all officials immediately accepted his command without objection. The subordinates included more than 300 eternal true gods and over 1,000 void true gods occupying important positions, all of whom understood that obedience to Luo Feng was their only choice. After the welcoming banquet ended, Luo Feng walked with the primordial ancestor and entrusted him with handling the numerous affairs of Shanji City. The primordial ancestor accepted with a smile, saying that he already had many illusionary avatars throughout the land of origin living different lives and that managing a great city was simply another identity that suited his cultivation. He also suggested that Moyu Qingyan become more involved in governing the city, believing that experiencing worldly affairs would help temper his heart and aid his cultivation. Luo Feng agreed and admitted that he had not personally taught Moyu Qingyan very much, as most of the guidance had come from the primordial ancestor and Morosa. Moyu Qingyan's natural talent was relatively ordinary, and after reaching the void true god level through the law lineage, his progress had become increasingly difficult. Therefore, after discussions between Luo Feng, Morosa, and the primordial ancestor, they decided that Moyu Qingyan should switch to the bloodline cultivation system. If he continued solely on the path of laws, becoming an eternal true god during his lifetime would already be a remarkable accomplishment. However, by following the bloodline cultivation system with the support and resources of Luo Feng and Morosa, reaching eternal true god would be comparatively easy, and there would even be a small possibility of eventually advancing to the primal chaos realm. As he watched the primordial ancestor leave, Luo Feng secretly marveled at him. The primordial ancestor's true body and illusionary avatars were so perfect that even Luo Feng could not distinguish between them. They possessed identical physical forms and identical auras. He could not even determine whether the person accompanying him in Shanji City was the true body or merely an avatar. Luo Feng could not help but think that if the primordial cosmos had not suppressed him, the primordial ancestor would likely have already succeeded in transcending reincarnation long ago. With a single step, Luo Feng entered a hidden hall deep underground. Inside was the entrance to another world, sealed by powerful formations and arrayed talismans capable of preventing primordial bloodline creatures from escaping. Looking at the world entrance, Luo Feng's eyes burned with anticipation. Normally, guarding Shanji City for tens of thousands of eras would earn around 1 million merit points. But since he had been sent here as punishment, he would receive no rewards at all. However, Luo Feng did not care about losing a million merit points. What truly interested him was the enormous population of primordial bloodline creatures living inside this world. Since he had already conceived the concept of the Trinity form, he wanted to further research the much stronger 10 Directions world form life structure. The golden scale beetle that he had previously obtained was one of the most perfected primordial bloodline creatures, and even a single corpse was worth 1 million merit points. However, Luo Feng knew that the guardians of Shanji City were under strict orders not to steal or slaughter the primordial bloodline creatures. The formation sealing the world continuously recorded everything, and such crimes were considered far more serious than killing a few avatars of Yan Su. Nevertheless, simple fighting and beating these creatures were not prohibited because they naturally fought among themselves, and these struggles helped stimulate the evolution of their bloodlines. Luo Feng therefore planned to frequently fight and discipline the creatures while collecting blood, scales, feathers, and other materials for research. The materials from a single golden scale beetle corpse were far from sufficient for his ambitious studies, and he needed a much larger quantity of samples. As night fell, Shanji City remained as bustling as ever. Ever since the news spread that Luo He, the first transcendent of the primal chaos realm, would guard the city for an era, Numerous forces had begun investing heavily in Shanji City. Various family branches moved there to establish themselves. And the prices of cave mansions rose dramatically. Standing atop a tower of the garrison mansion, Morosa looked over the city and remarked that being able to live safely for an entire era was already a luxury for countless cultivators. Luo Feng agreed. Although true gods possessed lifespans of 30,000 eras and void true gods had limitless lifespans. The constant conflicts and struggles throughout the land of origin caused many cultivators to die long before reaching their natural limits. Even powerful families dared not gather all their members in one place. Instead, spreading their branches among different cities to avoid complete destruction if they became involved in the clash of terrifying experts. At that moment, Luo Feng suddenly sensed something and turned to see a bald figure made entirely of light condensing nearby. The figure smiled at him. But merely being looked at caused Luo Feng to feel as though he were being stared at by an unimaginably terrifying beast capable of crushing him at any moment. Even with the power of his true body and its 9 billion black rivers. He felt completely unable to resist. Sensing the danger, Luo Feng ordered Morosa to withdraw. Morosa obeyed immediately. But even he felt intense fear and understood that this being could easily annihilate him completely. Such strength was definitely not something an ordinary first-realm godly king could possess. The bald figure introduced himself as the Walker, the deputy palace master of the Twin Realms Palace. Luo Feng expressed his surprise because the Twin Realms Palace was one of the most influential organizations in the land of origin, and its highest-ranking members were only the palace master and the deputy palace master. The Walker explained that the Twin Realms Palace highly valued Luo Feng because he was the first person ever to create his own secret technique and achieve transcendence of the primal chaos realm. With such talent and perception, once Luo Feng became a godly king and accumulated more experience, he would certainly reach the level of an invincible first-realm godly king and would then qualify to become an official member of the Twin Realms Palace. Luo Feng understood the significance of this evaluation. Many godly kings, even after mastering their inheritances to the limit, never reached such a level. The 8 Tribulations life form provided exceptional survivability but lacked overwhelming offensive strength. While the extermination of 72 blades possessed terrifying destructive power but was deficient in other areas. Only those who could rival ordinary second-realm godly kings were considered invincible first-realm godly kings. And this level was the minimum requirement for becoming an official member of the Twin Realms Palace. The Walker explained that he had come in advance to invite Luo Feng to become an outer member. Within the Twin Realms Palace, apart from the Palace Master and Deputy Palace Master, members did not know one another's true identities. They met only within a special virtual world and communicated through codenames. The organization existed to unite cultivators outside the imperial clans and break the monopolies maintained by the 2 ancient countries over precious resources. The Walker then asked Luo Feng what the most valuable resources in the land of origin were. He answered his own question by saying that the greatest treasures were not the resources brought back from beyond the braided cage by the primogenitor Yan Feng and the Thunder primogenitor, but rather the resources left behind by the primordial ancestor. He revealed that he himself had once received guidance from the primordial ancestor and considered it the greatest fortune of his life. According to him, most of the resources left by the primordial ancestor had already been occupied by the 2 ancient countries, and if non-imperial cultivators did not unite, they would not even be able to compete for the remaining portions. The Walker then pointed out that although Luo Feng was a direct disciple of Emperor Chu, it would not truly benefit him regarding these resources. The imperial clan's resources could only be distributed among imperial clan members. Guest elders and outsiders could only exchange contributions for lesser resources, while the most important treasures would never be granted to them. Yet the resources left by the primordial ancestor belonged to all cultivators and should not be monopolized. He further noted that very few godly kings fully joined the flame-wind ancient country. Most maintained their status as guest elders while still establishing their own divine kingdoms and independent forces outside. He also pointed out that only imperial clan members could become one of the 13 emperors of the Flame-Wind ancient country or one of the 9 monarchs of the Thunder ancient country. Even the direct disciples of the 2 primogenitors had never reached such positions. According to him, this was not because they lacked talent or perception but because the resources capable of producing emperors and monarchs were reserved exclusively for the imperial clans. The walker then revealed that among the resources left by the primordial ancestor were some that could be used by godly kings and even lower-level cultivators. He questioned whether Luo Feng had ever been given access to these resources and insisted that Emperor Chu would never provide them because he lacked the authority to do so. The most valuable inheritances and treasures were reserved for imperial clan members, while only peripheral resources were given to direct disciples. He even stated that every primal chaos realm transcendent within the imperial clan had the right to enter certain domains left by the primordial ancestor. Yet Luo Feng, despite being the first transcendent of the primal chaos realm, had never even heard of these places. He encouraged Luo Feng to ask Emperor Chu personally and said that Emperor Chu's honest nature would confirm his words. Finally, the walker handed Luo Feng a talisman and told him that whenever he made his decision, he could crush it to become an outer member of the Twin Realms Palace. As a gesture of goodwill, he promised that the moment Luo Feng agreed to join, he would immediately arrange for him to enter one of the domains left behind by the primordial ancestor. He described the Twin Realms Palace as an organization based on equality, cooperation, and fair exchange. Luo Feng accepted the talisman and said that he would think about it. The walker smiled, nodded, and silently dissolved into nothingness, leaving Luo Feng alone with much to consider. Luo Feng stood alone on a tower overlooking Shanji City at dusk, holding a command token while recalling the invitation from the Two Realms Palace Deputy Palace Master, Walker. The offer included access to a secret location left by Yuan, which tempted Luo Feng due to his existing inheritance of Yuan's techniques. But he remained cautious, unsure whether the claim of equal cooperation was genuine, so he decided to consult his master first. That night in Chu capital, Luo Feng met Emperor Chu. Emperor Chu confirmed that the Two Realms Palace acted quickly and that the invitation was significant, especially since Luo Feng was only at the primal chaos transcendent level. He explained that the two ancient countries allocate most resources to their imperial clans, and outsiders must exchange merit points or pay costs for resources. This system was established by the ancestor to concentrate cultivation resources on elite members of the clan, while still allowing outsiders limited access through fair exchange. Emperor Chu further clarified that even disciples do not receive free resources, as masters must personally bear the merit cost of any inheritance or cultivation aid they provide. He himself was in debt to the clan due to borrowing large amounts of resources to reach the emperor level, meaning he must complete missions to repay it. Among the 13 emperor bloodlines of the imperial clan, most are similarly indebted, except Emperor Cheng, who has some authority to distribute resources more freely. Emperor Chu advised Luo Feng that joining the Flamewind ancient country would impose unnecessary restrictions and that remaining independent as a guest elder was more beneficial. He then warned Luo Feng not to join three covert forces, the Two Realms Palace, Wanfa Tower, and Timespace Lonely Boat, because they were likely founded by alien races from beyond the braided cage. Although their strength is suppressed within the primal chaos realm, they still possess dangerous and strange methods that make them difficult to eliminate and potentially risky to interact with over long periods, especially as they actively seek the ancestors' resources. Luo Feng was shocked but relieved to learn their power was limited. Emperor Chu emphasized that these alien forces are major competitors for the ancestors' legacy and that prolonged contact may involve hidden risks, as their secret realms may contain unknown influences. He noted that although many sacred sites exist, most are inaccessible to primal chaos cultivators, which is why these three forces attract attention. After considering options, Emperor Chu concluded that apart from dealing with alien races, the only viable path for Luo Feng to obtain major opportunities was through border competition between the two ancient countries. These border regions contain numerous natural treasures, and primal chaos realm cultivators regularly contest them. Emperor Chu proposed that Luo Feng repeatedly seize these resources. Each contest yields thousands of merit points, and over time the accumulated gains could reach massive levels. He explained that since each individual treasure is not valuable enough to attract godly king intervention, Luo Feng could consistently win battles due to his strength advantage. Eventually, the opposing country would be forced to negotiate, at which point Luo Feng could demand access to the ancestors' sacred site. Emperor Chu admitted this was the only practical strategy available. Luo Feng accepted the plan and departed to begin operations along the border between the two ancient countries. He recognized the vast scale of the region and the abundance of treasures, many of which only require guarding at maturity. Confident in his overwhelming power, supported by vast Black River energy, Luo Feng prepared to seize control of these opportunities, effectively turning the primal chaos realm battleground into his own harvesting field. Within the territory of the Thunder Ancient Country stood an ancient heavenly treasure known as the Frost Fruit Tree. Nurtured naturally by heaven and earth, the tree only bore fruit once every 196 eras, producing 8 frost fruits that served as valuable auxiliary resources for cultivating the primordial bloodline. As the next harvest approached, a pinnacle primal chaos realm expert was assigned to guard the tree. During the fruit's maturation period, he suspended all cultivation and focused entirely on controlling the godly king-level formation protecting the area. Knowing that warriors from the Flame-Wind Ancient Country might attempt to steal the fruits at any moment, the Guardian remained confident, believing that even a Transcendence-level primal chaos realm expert would need time to break the formation and that Thunder Ancient Country would certainly send reinforcements before that happened. Furthermore, the frost fruits themselves were worth only 8,000 merit points in total, a value too low to attract the strongest Transcendence experts. As night arrived, the frost fruit tree finally matured. The entire tree, which looked as though it had been carved from ice, released a dazzling white radiance that condensed into the 8 frost fruits. At that exact moment, the Black River world suddenly descended, and a vast black river completely sealed the entire area around the frost fruit tree. Realizing the situation was dire, the gray-robed elder immediately plucked the newly ripened fruits. However, the Black River effortlessly infiltrated and destroyed the godly king's formation. The elder attempted to escape in his fog form, but the Black River domain had already sealed the world itself, preventing any escape. His heart trembled as he immediately recognized the technique as the Black River domain of Great Saint Luohe. Soon afterward, the Black Waters gathered together and formed an incarnation of Luo Feng. The elder respectfully greeted him and did not dare show the slightest disrespect. Luo Feng simply said, "Give me the fruits." Without any hesitation, the elder handed over all 8 frost fruits because he knew that resisting would likely cost him his life. And the secret treasures and weapons he carried were far more valuable than the fruits themselves. After obtaining the fruits, Luo Feng immediately withdrew, and the Black River world vanished entirely, leaving the Guardian unharmed. The elder sighed in relief, thinking that Great Saint Luo he was surprisingly merciful for not harming him. In reality, Luo Feng had never intended to slaughter the Guardians on a large scale. With his current strength, he was already among the strongest existences of the first realm of Godly King, and killing ordinary primal Chaos Realm Guardians felt like bullying the weak. Moreover, indiscriminate slaughter would create enormous karmic consequences because these Guardians all had families, factions, and powerful backers within Thunder Ancient Country. Killing too many of them could provoke the older and stronger generations. Most importantly, Luo Feng himself disliked senseless killing. His true objective in harvesting treasures of heaven and earth on such a large scale was to force Thunder Ancient Country into negotiations and obtain an opportunity to enter one of their precious treasure lands. Since he was not a member of the imperial clans of the 2 ancient countries and was unwilling to cooperate with alien races, this was the only method he could think of. At the Holy Land of Mount Lighting in Thunder Ancient Country, a godly king dressed in deep purple robes was handling the countless affairs of the vast nation. When he received news that Luo he had stolen the 8 frost fruits, he merely smiled because this was the first time Luo Feng had seized one of Thunder Ancient Country's border treasures, and he simply assumed that the frost fruits were useful to him. After all, conflicts over border resources among primal Chaos Realm cultivators were extremely common. The border between the 2 ancient countries was extremely long and contained many locations that nurtured heavenly treasures. But only around 100 treasures matured every era. After every successful harvest, Luo Feng patiently waited for the next opportunity. While on his way to claim his 3rd treasure, he suddenly received important news that Marquis Lu Yin had died. According to information from the Flame Wind Pavilion, the core members of Marquis Lu Yin's family had disappeared and likely scattered into many branches to hide themselves, while Marquis Lu Yin's karmic existence had completely vanished, indicating that he had voluntarily entered reincarnation after arranging everything beforehand. Luo Feng was surprised because he had originally planned to settle accounts with Marquis Lu Yin after his spiritual will reached the ultimate realm of godly king. His killing intent toward Marquis Lu Yin stemmed from two reasons: the death of his friend Shang Tianyan and Marquis Lu Yin's own nature. As he delighted in causing disasters and massacres, and even his children enjoyed mass slaughter. Luo Feng had refrained from acting only because he lacked complete confidence in permanently killing him. Unexpectedly, Marquis Lu Yin had chosen reincarnation first. After a brief moment of thought, Luo Feng put the matter aside and continued toward his next target. Back in Mount Lighting, the godly king in purple gradually became alarmed. The second and third incidents surprised him. The seventh and eighth made him realize something was wrong. And by the 15th incident his expression had become completely serious. Every single heavenly treasure that had matured near the border had been seized by Luo Feng. Not a single opportunity being missed. Although the total value was only around 100,000 merit points. An insignificant amount to Thunder Ancient Country. The pattern itself was extremely suspicious. The godly king realized that Luo Feng was deliberately targeting all of Thunder Ancient Country's border treasures and immediately went to report the matter personally. A short time later, 9 godly kings gathered before the ruler of Thunder Ancient Country, Monarch Lei Xiao. Monarch Lei Xiao was one of the monarchs of Thunder Ancient Country and sat upon the throne surrounded by endless thunder. The nation's 9 monarchs were divided into 2 main factions. One faction cultivated the primordial bloodline of Thunderbolt, the path left behind by the Thunderbolt ancestor. Although this path was the most complete and powerful, it was also extremely difficult because there was no origin Tao of Thunderbolt in the land of origin. Only 3 monarchs followed this path, while the remaining 6 cultivated other primordial bloodlines. Additionally, there were 3 semi-uncontrolled monarch-level beings who could also be considered an independent faction. After explaining the situation, Monarch Lei Xiao asked how the matter should be resolved. One towering godly king with blood-red eyes immediately advocated killing Luo Feng, arguing that 15 consecutive interceptions could not be a coincidence and that if allowed to continue, all future heavenly treasures would eventually be taken by Luo Feng. Another godly king agreed and proposed killing Luo Feng before he could reincarnate. However, godly King Jiayan disagreed. She pointed out that Luo Feng possessed countless avatars because he cultivated the origin great Taos of life, destruction, and matter, and some of those avatars were inside Chu Capital. Nobody could easily enter Chu Capital and permanently kill him because the city had been personally created by primogenitor Yan Feng and was protected by Emperor Chu himself. Even if a monarch personally attacked, Luo Feng still possessed numerous life-preserving methods and could reincarnate if given enough time. Once he became a godly king, his future strength might even rival her own. Furthermore, attacking Chu Capital and bullying a weaker cultivator would provoke Emperor Chu, and the emperors of Flamewind Ancient Country would unite against an outside threat. Finally, she reminded everyone that the 2 ancestors had intentionally left the border territories for primal Chaos Realm cultivators to compete over and that the strong were meant to seize resources through battle. Luo Feng's actions were entirely within the rules, and changing those rules merely because one person was too powerful would make Thunder Ancient Country appear petty and narrow-minded. When asked for an alternative solution, godly King Jiayan simply proposed negotiating with Luohe, saying this was merely a small matter that could be settled through discussion. Several godly kings immediately supported her proposal, and Monarch Lei Xiao was also very satisfied because among all his subordinates, godly King Jiayan was the one he valued most. Despite not relying on external power, she had reached the invincible level of the first realm of godly king and remained calm and rational. Unlike many of the other unstable overlord-level experts, in the end, Monarch Lei Xiao entrusted the matter entirely to godly King Jiayan. She accepted the order and departed to handle the negotiations with Luo Feng. After she left, the blood-eyed godly king expressed his displeasure, mocking her cultivation of the origin Tao of the infinite and complaining that she always hid herself so well that even he had never been able to touch her despite previously attempting to attack her. On the outskirts of Chu Capital City in the Flamewind Ancient Country, a graceful woman in luxurious robes appeared from the void, smiling as she looked toward the capital. She remarked that Huang Feng was imprisoned there. Through her mastery of the origin Tao of causality, she could precisely locate the imprisoned Desert Wind City Lord. Looking at Chu Capital City, She praised it as an extraordinary secret treasure personally crafted by primogenitor Yan Feng and sensed the endless power contained within its walls. She knew that inside this city, Emperor Chu was completely invincible. With a single step, she arrived at the city gates and entered openly. Another step brought her directly outside Luo Feng's cave dwelling, where she gently knocked on the door. Inside the cave dwelling, Luo Feng immediately sensed the visitor. Before he could react further, the servant had already opened the door. Through the many buildings of his residence, Luo Feng instantly recognized the visitor as godly King Jia Yin. Jia Yin also looked at him and greeted him as Great Saint Luo He. Luo Feng became serious because godly King Jia Yin was one of the most famous figures in the entire land of origin. According to the information provided by Emperor Chu, there were fewer than 20 beings in the entire land of origin who had reached the level of an unrivaled first realm godly king. Most of them relied upon the primordial bloodline path. However, among those who did not rely on primordial bloodlines, there were only around 5 individuals, and Jia Yin was one of them. Her uniqueness caused even the monarchs of Thunder Ancient Country to value her greatly. Regardless of who currently ruled the nation, Jia Yin had used the origin Tao of the infinite as her foundation and cultivated it to the ultimate limit of the first realm of godly king. Afterward, she also cultivated the origin Tao of causality. The combination of these two origin Taos made her an unrivaled existence in the first realm. Because of this combination, she possessed an extraordinary ability to sense and foresee danger in advance. In terms of escaping danger and preserving her life, Luo Feng believed that she surpassed even himself and the ancestral god of the snow realm. She was truly one of the overlord-level existences of the land of origin. Inside the welcome pavilion of the cave mansion, Luo Feng personally entertained Jia Yin and poured wine for her. He asked why such a powerful godly king had come to visit someone still in the primal chaos realm. Jia Yin smiled and explained that recently, 15 rare natural treasures had appeared along the border between the two ancient countries. Every single one of them had been seized by Luo Feng. He had not missed even one opportunity, while the continuously productive mines could still be exploited gradually by others. Luo Feng had perfectly timed the maturation of all periodically appearing treasures and monopolized them completely. Luo Feng calmly asked whether such actions were not allowed. He pointed out that the conflicts along the border had lasted for endless eras and that winners and losers were natural. Jia Yin admitted that Luo Feng's actions were entirely permitted, since his strength far exceeded every other transcendent primal chaos realm expert. He naturally had the right to monopolize those resources. Thunder Ancient Country could accept losing to someone stronger. However, she warned him that many godly kings of Thunder Ancient Country had terrible tempers. Among them were several individuals who were only barely under control despite possessing monarch-level power. If Luo Feng continued harvesting every natural treasure along the border, one of those half-uncontrolled monarchs might become enraged. Even if Luo Feng remained within Chu capital city, such a being could instantly destroy all of his avatars throughout the land of origin. If he were fortunate, he might still retain enough time to be reborn. Luo Feng responded that one of his avatars lived within Emperor Chu's palace itself. This arrangement had been made by Emperor Chu specifically as a precaution. Jia Yin frowned slightly. Chu capital city was a bustling city with unrestricted entry and exit, and monarch-level experts could easily teleport inside and kill Luo Feng's avatars. However, the palace of Emperor Chu was different. Without permission, nobody could enter it. Therefore, if one could not enter the palace, one could not reach Luo Feng's protected avatar. Realizing this, Jia Yin acknowledged that Emperor Chu truly valued Luo Feng. Since threats would not work, she directly stated Thunder Ancient Country's purpose. They hoped Luo Feng would permanently give up competing for the border treasures and invited him to name his conditions. Luo Feng smiled and stated his only demand. He wanted entry into one of the treasure sites left behind by Yuan. Any of them would do. Jia Yin's expression changed slightly. The resources left by Yuan were among the most precious assets possessed by the ancient countries. She immediately rejected the proposal and asked him to choose another condition. Luo Feng remained firm. If they refused, he would simply continue monopolizing the border treasures. He had plenty of time. Whether 100 eras or 1,000 eras. Unable to decide such a matter herself, Jia Yin returned to consult the monarch. At Mount Lighting, monarch Lei Xiao was somewhat surprised upon hearing Luo Feng's request. Jia Yin explained that this was his only condition and that he would otherwise continue competing for the border treasures. Lei Xiao carefully considered the matter. Although entry quotas to Yuan's treasure sites were precious, they still had measurable value. The natural treasures born along the border, while individually ordinary, became unimaginably valuable after accumulating over countless eras. Jia Yin estimated that if Luo Feng continued monopolizing them for 1,000 eras, the value of those treasures would exceed 500 million merit points. If he remained in the primal chaos realm for several thousand more eras, Thunder Ancient Country's losses would become enormous. Furthermore, monopolization of so many resources could cause shortages of numerous low and mid-level materials. Understanding the seriousness of the situation, Lei Xiao agreed. He ordered that Luo Feng be given entry into the least valuable treasure site left by Yuan. Jia Yin suggested the treasure site known as Infinite Space. For guest godly kings, one entry required 50 million merit points and was considered the least valuable option available. Lei Xiao accepted the suggestion and retrieved a silver token from the royal treasury, giving it to Jia Yin. Back in Chu capital, Jia Yin informed Luo Feng that the monarch had agreed, in exchange for one entry into a Yuan treasure site, Great Saint Luo, he would forever abandon competition for the rare resources along the border between the two ancient countries. She also warned him that such an agreement constituted a major cause and effect. If he later violated his promise, even an invincible First Realm godly king could have all of their avatars annihilated instantly through the backlash of causality. Luo Feng understood. Normally, an invincible First Realm godly king was extremely difficult to kill completely, even for emperors and monarchs. However, deliberately creating a massive karmic debt and then breaking the agreement would provide an opportunity for monarchs to use causal backlash to destroy all avatars. Since he had given his word, Luo Feng had no intention of competing for the border treasures again. If he ever needed such resources in the future, he would simply purchase them. Jia Yin then placed the silver token for Infinite Space on the table. Luo Feng looked at it with anticipation. Aside from the inheritance of the Lai Yuan technique, this was another major opportunity that had entered his hands. As soon as he touched the token, a large amount of information flowed directly into his mind, giving him a basic understanding of the treasure site. After the transaction was completed, Jia Yin brought up another matter. She had heard that Luo Feng had imprisoned the true body of the Desert Wind City Lord. Luo Feng confirmed it. Jia Yin asked whether he would release the prisoner. Luo Feng replied that the city lord still owed him 220 billion cosmic sand. Without hesitation, Jia Yin declared that she would pay the debt herself. Luo Feng agreed immediately. Soon afterward, the Desert Wind City Lord was released. Upon seeing Jia Yin, he was extremely respectful and grateful. Jia Yin informed him that she had paid 220 billion cosmic sand to save him. From now on, he would serve her until the debt had been fully repaid, after which he would regain his freedom. The Desert Wind City Lord accepted immediately. During his imprisonment, he had tried to gather the ransom, but the various godly kings of Thunder Ancient Country had all attempted to exploit him. Jia Yin was the first person genuinely willing to rescue him. As they departed, the Desert Wind City Lord could not help but glance back at Luo Feng. Luo Feng merely smiled slightly. Even someone as fierce and tyrannical as the Desert Wind City Lord now felt fear toward Luo. He only wanted to get as far away from him as possible. After obtaining the silver token, Luo Feng did not immediately enter Infinite Space. Instead, he first sought guidance from Emperor Chu. He presented the token and explained that Thunder Ancient Country had agreed to his conditions. Emperor Chu examined it and remarked that he had expected Thunder Ancient Country to give Luo Feng one of the lower value quotas, but he had not expected them to choose one this ordinary. Luo Feng was surprised and asked whether Infinite Space was truly of low value. Emperor Chu explained that among the treasure sites left by Yuan, some were so extraordinary that they could drive godly kings mad with desire. In comparison, Infinite Space was relatively ordinary. Nevertheless, Emperor Chu sent Luo Feng all of the information possessed by Flame Wind Ancient Country regarding Infinite Space. This information was far more detailed than what came with the token. After reading it, Luo Feng still found the treasure site extremely impressive. However, Emperor Chu reminded him not to underestimate any place left by Yuan. Infinite Space might still contain secrets that no one had yet discovered. That very night, Luo Feng sat alone in the quiet room within the Star Tower. Holding the silver token, according to the information he had received, the token would guide the user's consciousness into infinite space. He activated the token. Immediately, a stream of his consciousness was drawn away toward the treasure site known as infinite space. At the same time, the silver token disappeared completely. Each entry token could only be used once. After being consumed, it would vanish and later reappear randomly somewhere within the land of origin, waiting for a new owner to discover it.